Hello, I'm Robert from JUPITER-Xpert here in my new studio, and I'm here to show and let you know the 5 biggest things about the latest update to the Roland JUPITER-X and Xm synthesizers System Program 1.30. I got an early look, and I've got to say this is a must-have update that will exceed the expectations of most Jupiter users. Let's get started. As a reminder, System Program 1.21 was released in May, mostly focused on adding support for sound packs and wave expansions from Roland Cloud. This was also about the same time that the software implementation of ZEN-Core, ZENOLOGY, was introduced and model expansions started being released. But still missing was tone, import, and export, which had been mentioned as a feature way back at the 2019 launch. So what are the 5 big things to look for in Jupiter 1.30? Number 1, tone import and export. Custom-made tones can now be exported and imported, backed up to your desktop, and now shared between Jupiter users. This is a good time to check out the Patchland group on Facebook. Worth noting, Roland has also just launched ZENOLOGY Pro in Roland Cloud. ZENOLOGY Pro is a very visual ZEN-Core synthesizer that gives you both the big picture of a ZEN-Core tone as well as full access to any of the hundreds of parameters that make up these tones. Compared to the Jupiter menu display and controls, this makes editing and creating ZEN-Core tones a real breeze. And now you can exchange tones between the Jupiter and ZENOLOGY. A note about tone export from the Jupiter. If you've built a custom tone using any of the wave expansions, be aware that those waveforms are not exported with your tone. If you want to share a tone like that, it will only work for those who have also purchased and installed the same wave expansion set that you used. The next big thing, import and export of scenes. This was unexpected but really welcome. Now Jupiter users can export their 5-part scene as a single SVD file to backup or even share between other X and Xm users. And the best part, these files include any step edit sequence patterns in your scene. If you saw my previous video on how to use step edit, you saw me create a scene with sequences on each part based on a certain famous 80s instrumental. Visit my blog at JUPITER-Xpert.com because now I can share that file with you to play on your own. Number 3, scene and tone right. It doesn't sound big, but it's a great feature for those who belatedly realize that if they wrote a scene but didn't save the adjustments to the tones in the scene, those adjustments were lost. Scene and tone right walks you through saving the edited tones to your user bank, then prompts you to save the scene. Number 4, another big one. The Jupiters now have a new remote keyboard functionality that expands it to USB Midi. Previously, a remote keyboard controller connected by USB rather than MIDI DIN couldn't trigger IARP. This was a bummer for some using a DAW or, like me, using a big keyboard controller with aftertouch with their Jupiter-Xm. With the new remote keyboard functions, you can connect to and specify if you want to use either the USB COM port or the USB MEM port, and the remote keyboard will act just as if you were using the Jupiter's own keys. Last but not least, added in 1.30, number 5, new sync settings for USB. If you had issues with IARP or some effects, especially time-based effects, when using another device or DAW providing external sync to the Jupiter, this one's for you. You may have heard strange artifacting or seen the Jupiter tempo display bouncing around when using an external clock, forcing you to use Xm internal sync as the clock for the rest of your gear. The new system settings for sync mode and sync out let you specify internal clock or which port external clock is coming from and which ports, if any, to send out sync. When using this, I've noticed that the Jupiter seems to be much better at locking onto consistent external tempo, and the problems that manifested seem to be gone now. So again, a really great new feature, especially for those using their Jupiter as part of a larger setup. This video doesn't cover everything. See the release notes and, if available, the supplementary manual. Also, although I haven't seen a detailed bug fix note, a number of defects reported to Roland support seem to have been dealt with, some related to sync mode. If you submitted, you might want to regress after installing 1.30 to see if any bug or suggestion you submitted is also addressed in the update. Because I know folks will ask in the comments, here are the things not in 1.30. No new models. Jupiter-Xv and RD model tones do not appear to be exportable to ZENOLOGY. Direct USB interchange. We still have to use a USB stick and SneakerNet to exchange files between the Jupiter and the desktop. But at least you can import from and export directly to the USB stick you use with your Jupiter. I hope this one gets addressed in the future. As I'm recording this, I don't know how any of this impacts other ZEN-Core systems since. I suspect ZEN-Core tone export from the Jupiters to the Phantom may now be supported, but not Jupiter models or model expansion tones. And no word yet on whether ABM model expansions will even be made available to that other hardware. Nevertheless, as I said, this update is a must-have, and a big round of applause to the Jupiter development team in Japan and Roland support worldwide. Don't forget to check out Roland Cloud and the new ZENOLOGY Pro because they're a great way to expand the capabilities of your Jupiter. Also worth trying is the latest version of Roland ZenBeats, probably my favorite digital audio software of 2020, and again, full of features that are perfectly suited for connecting your Jupiter to your desktop and really enhancing your music making. Also, please hit like and subscribe to this channel so that we can do live streaming tutorials. And for the latest Jupiter news, tutorials, and more, visit my site at JUPITER-Xpert.com. More to come on all of these developments very soon. Be seeing you.